Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Newsroom. I'm your host, Khalid. But today is the 2nd of July 2021. It's a Friday, and these are the stories that we will be discussing during the course of our show. We will begin, ladies and gentlemen, with the meeting, the in-camera meeting that was held between the parliamentarians and the military leaders of Pakistan, in which the external and internal security threats of the country were deliberated in detail, and different aspects of Pakistan's policy were also discussed in detail with the members of the parliament. They were briefed by the security apparatus of the country about what are the challenges that Pakistan is confronted with internally and externally. This is going to be our leading segment of the day, ladies and gentlemen. Then our second segment of the day, of course, concerns the tweet by the Prime Minister of Pakistan, in which he has said that I commend the efforts of the FBR to achieve the historical level of tax revenues of rupees 4,732 billion in the year 2020-21, exceeding target of rupees 4,691 billion and 18% higher than last year. Of course, this is quite a commendable performance, and the tweet by Imran Khan validates that as well. Then we'll be discussing the leadership of Jam Kamal Khan, the Chief Minister of Baluchistan, whose government is endeavouring to bring the latest technologies as far as the benefit of the people are concerned. The PSDP Automation Resource Centre was recently inaugurated in this very context in the Civil Secretariat, Quetta, on the 3rd of June 2021. We'll be talking about that. Then we will be talking about M.Jaffer, who is a worker. I mean, now he's retired, but he was a worker at the Bacha International Airport, and never in his 35 years of service did anyone complain about him. So now he's been made an honorary manager of the airport as well. Now, of course, this is a kind of a commencement and all the commendation of his efforts that have come forward in these 35 years of service, where nobody has ever had anything negative to say about him. Then we will be talking about, ladies and gentlemen, the Islamophobia and how it is impacting the Muslim countries across the world. We've talked about in the past what happened in Canada. There have been two incidents, one with the family and the other with the man recently whose beard was cut, and he was, of course, subject to a violent attack. Now the United Nations General Assembly has unanimously adopted a revised global counterterrorism strategy and has called on the international community to take appropriate measures to address new and existing terrorist threats on the basis of xenophobia, racism and Islamophobia. This was, of course, backed by Pakistan. It was a resolution that was brought forward by Pakistan and some other countries. And then finally, we'll be talking about violence against women. And of course, in that violence comes also harassment. A lot of people do not understand how important harassment is also when it comes to women or men. But let's talk about harassment towards women in this context. And now there are different areas in Pakistan that are, of course, tackling this. And in the Rawalpindi police station, there is a certain section that has been put forward for that. You can call the number 111-276-797 for that as well. Let's begin with our first segment, ladies and gentlemen, and that concerns the in-camera briefing that was given to the parliamentarians by the security apparatus of the country. More after this short break.
An in-camera meeting of the Parliamentary Committee on National Security took place at the Parliament House with the country's security apparatus. During this 8-hour-long meeting, the lawmakers expressed satisfaction over the briefing provided by Director General Inter-Services Intelligence, Kashmir, Afghanistan, and other significant matters of national security and strategic ambience were the core areas of this briefing. Amid the impending regional turmoil, the briefing was aimed to take political leadership and all stakeholders on board regarding future trajectory of country to navigate purportedly turbulent geopolitical shift. The briefing was scheduled against the backdrop of half-baked American withdrawal from Afghanistan, along with resurgence of attacks against security forces in tribal areas. Furthermore, BJP's attempt to confront Pakistan with a fait accompli in Kashmir is colossal regional development having substantial impact upon security and national interests of Pakistan. Pakistan's undaunted efforts to usher sustainable peace and prosperity in Afghanistan reverberated in the briefing, whereby the participants conceded that stability in Afghanistan will pave way for developments and prosperity in South Asia. As per media reports, participants affirmed that Pakistan's territory will not be used in the ongoing conflict in Afghanistan. Pakistan would welcome a truly representative government of Afghans and that it would continue its responsible role for peace in Afghanistan. Early on Wednesday, Premier Imran Khan, during his resounding speech in the National Assembly, categorically ruled out possibility of cooperating with the United States in any conflict in the future, while suggesting being partners in peace with United States.
Lieutenant General Raza Muhammad Khan Saab, defense analyst, joins us online to talk more about this very important topic. Sir, thank you very much to have joined us. Sir, how important was the fact that the lawmakers need to be given this in-camera briefing by our security apparatus? And do you feel that this is going to create a consensus amongst the opposition and the ruling government?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I think this was a great opportunity for both the armed forces of Pakistan, the members from the government, and the politicians, including members from the opposition. So the convening of this meeting alone is a good omen, which sends the message of solidarity among the people of Pakistan across the political divide. As your report said, I think such meetings were welcome, and I think they need to continuously be held periodically on a required basis, or whenever there is a serious situation. So I think that has gone well, and I think Pakistan's policies have been once again reiterated through this security briefing, as well as the Prime Minister's speech. Now, very quickly, I'd like to add to this some recent development, and I'd like to make a mention of two. One is the Foreign Policy's magazine's report that the NDS is arming Afghan civilians or militias to also be responsible for peace and security in the region. This, I think, is going to be a very dangerous turn. And I think the regular armed forces of Afghanistan, including the government of Afghanistan and others, should actually, it should be a matter of great concern for them. Because if the regular armed forces cannot control the situation effectively, which we believe that the government is claiming that they are fully in control, then I think raising of such militias has always created problems in the past, and it will do so in the future as well. The second aspect that I'd like to mention is a statement by the Russian Foreign Minister, Mr. Lavrov, which has been brought by Tolo News of Afghanistan. And he has said that ISIS or Daesh is assembling in northern Afghanistan, and which is a threat, to some of the countries which is neighboring the Central Asian republics, and which is a matter of concern for Russia. And again, the Russian Foreign Minister has shown his displeasure over the very slow process of the peace talks, particularly from the Afghan government side. And he has said that one of the major reasons for this kind of instability is that the present Afghan rulers are more interested in perpetuation of their rule, and they are not prepared to start an open dialogue with the Taliban. So I think these are important developments.
All
and,
right.
We hope
All right,
that
sir, you talked about these important developments, and I think they are very relevant in this present regional and global context, especially in the view of the security of the region. When we see the US, of course, forces exiting Afghanistan, as we know that Bagram base has completely been exited by the US troops, and the other bases will follow suit. In all of this context, then of course you talked about the NDS, you talked about Mr. Lavrov's statement as well. Let's come to Mr. Lavrov's statement, and let's come towards the peace talks between the Afghan Taliban and the Afghan government. Who is taking more time, and why is that so? Is it the Afghan government's fault for not initiating dialogue with the Afghan Taliban, or is it the Afghan Taliban's insistence that they want these talks on their own terms now that the US and NATO forces are exiting?
I think you can partially blame both for this, but I would blame the present Afghan government more because they have an establishment, they have their offices, and they are now the ones, who should invite the Taliban formally, openly, without anyone urging them. And as I've been saying, on the previous occasions, that these talks should now be held in Kabul itself, or Jalalabad, or any other place that suits both sides. And I think the international mediators should also be sitting in this. Unfortunately, right now there are no international mediators. The UN would have been the best mediator or
But we don't
facilitator.
see any sign of the United Nations, with due respect, sir. And also, when you talk of the future talks being held in Kabul between the two parties, do you feel there will be some kind of a resolve from any of the two sides to come together for talks when we know what is happening in Afghanistan as we speak?
Well, I think it is in the interests of both the parties. They have to share power. There is no alternative to that. And I think that is in the national interest of not only Afghanistan, but the people of Pakistan. And I think these, both the sides, they need to keep these interests above their own personal petty political interests. And therefore, I would say again that, left to themselves, they probably are incapable of taking such crucial decisions. So there has to be continuous pressures on them from the Troika Plus. And we know that if Russia is expressing this concern, I think this should be the concern of China, of the United States, and of course of Pakistan. And I think if the security situations deteriorates, then an emergency meeting of the Troika will be necessary. And in that, again, I think the United Nations now needs to be given a real practical dominant role to be on
And a
the
proper
ground.
mandate as far as the future of the Afghan peace process is concerned. But where does that leave the United States of America, with due respect also, sir? The US has spent almost 2 decades in Afghanistan without any concrete result whatsoever. And now, of course, it is back. It is going back to its native country. So are the NATO forces. Germany is back. The German forces are back as well. Do you feel that the US will have some kind of a direct or indirect role in the future as far as the Afghan situation is concerned?
Definitely, I think that is the reason that, unlike in the past, the US embassy is there. I think so are all other international embassies and consulates. The Indians probably are the only one who have reduced some consulates, probably in Jalalabad and other places. And they are committed to the protection of that. The international community, the Troika Plus, is committed to the protection of that. And I think both Pakistan as well as its other partners in the Troika Plus must communicate it to all the sides that if there is any damage to our embassies or to our consulates, then there will be consequences, there will be reprisals. So I think that is important. But the United States, out of the Troika Plus, it still has, the most profound influence, because the entire money and the economy to the armed forces of the Afghan government, it is still going to be channeled through the United States. So they are enjoying that capacity. I think they hold the greater responsibility amongst all the other Troika countries, and they should not leave it to any one of the individual countries. But this issue should be faced collectively, and I think as soon as possible, whether a meeting on the matter is held in Doha or at any other place,
All right.
with the United
When you
Nations
talk of
Secretary
collective measures, that's a very important term, collective measures, whether it be working for the Afghan peace process or working for the benefit of your own country. Let's come back to the in-camera briefing in Pakistan given to the lawmakers. When you talk of collective resolve, do you feel that meetings such as these will lead to a collective resolve between the opposition and the government as far as important issues of national interest, such as what would happen post the US and NATO to pull out, the Afghan situation, and internal and external security measures taken by, of course, our security agencies is concerned. Do you feel both the opposition and the government are going to come on one page when it comes to these important issues?
I think when it comes to the matter of the security of Pakistan, then there are no two options. I think this has been demonstrated in the past as well. When post the Pulwama events and the Balakot attacks, and I think the same is going to be demonstrated in the future as well. And in that National Security Committee meeting, I think threats not only emanating, which could emanate from Afghanistan, India, but also other directions like pressures coming on Pakistan from the FATF and from other international powers, to either coerce Pakistan to provide basis to it or to downgrade its relationship with China. I think that these are some of the pressures which are there, and I think Pakistan will not surrender to such pressure. It has not done so in the past, and I think with the unity of the nation and the politicians and the parliamentarians of the countries, Pakistan is quite capable of sustaining such pressure because it has done so in the past as well, and I think we will do that in the future as well.
All right, now General Saab, let's come to the US and Pakistan relationship, and let's also talk about the fact that Pakistan has said no to any kind of base, US base in Pakistan, as far as, of course, targeting Afghanistan or any other country is concerned. Which kind of impact do you feel this is going to have on the future of US-Pakistan relationship? We know that the FATF is also a pressure tactic. We know also that there is a recent law under which Pakistan has been put in as well, which is also one of a tactic to put more pressure on Pakistan. Do you feel more such things or measures are in the pipeline if Pakistan, now that Pakistan has refused to give any base to the US?
I think that will be very unhelpful. It has been unhelpful when during the Trump administration, and it did not lead to any positive outcome. And I think the United States should not be, pressing Pakistan for any basis, because as the Prime Minister had stated in one of his op-eds, either to the Washington Post and also to the New York Times, that if NATO countries and its supporting countries comprising about 37 nations could not control the events in Afghanistan while sitting inside there, how do they expect to do so from Pakistan?
True.
So they should actually be more interested in seeking Pakistan's intelligence corporations to make sure that terrorist groups, whether they are TPP or ISIS or Al-Qaeda or even raw terrorists or NDS terrorists, they do not derail the peace process and they do not pose any threat to any neighboring countries of Afghanistan. So I think they should be working on that. And on that, I think Pakistan will be able to help and assist them to the extent possible, but not through pressure tactics. I think if this is done to the application of pressure, I think even this will not work. And the United States and the international community would then eventually be the losers on this account also.
All right. Thank you very much, Lieutenant General Raza Muhammad Khan Saab, to have joined us and to have talked to us on this very, very important issue, of course, that pertains to the future of the Afghan peace process and, of course, in the whole context also of the in-camera briefing that has been given to the parliamentarians and to the lawmakers by the security apparatus of our country as far as the different threats that Pakistan is faced with directly, indirectly, internally and externally, and which are the factors that are involved in these kind of threats. It was, of course, an almost 8-hour-long meeting that happened in which briefing was given. Thank you very much, Lieutenant General Raza Muhammad Khan Saab, to have joined us. Let's come to our next segment, ladies and gentlemen, and that concerns a tweet that our Prime Minister Imran Khan posted today, and in which he congratulated the FBR to achieve a historic level of tax revenue that is equivalent to 4,732 billion rupees in the year 2021, 18% higher than last year. What are the factors that have been behind this 18% increase of tax revenue? What more should be done to collect even more tax from those who are not paying the taxes? And how important is tax revenue for the future and the economic development of Pakistan? We've been joined by Shakeel Ramay Saab, who's a leading economist in our studios. Shakeel Saab, thank you very much to have joined us.
Yes.
Shakeel Saab, we've talked a lot of times about Pakistan's economy, different factors, what are the lacunas in Pakistan economy and what needs to be done. Now, in the whole context of, let's talk about tax revenue. You know, when the Prime Minister talks about people coming under the tax net, a lot of measures have been taken, but still there is a huge percentage of people in Pakistan, especially from the elite, that does not come in the tax net and does not pay the taxes accordingly. It is quite heartening to see the 18% increase from last year, but what more needs to be done?
I think first of all we must congratulate government, and and as a Pakistani we must feel happy. So that's we are showing some progress on a tax collection. Tax collection has always been a bit complicated issue for the Pakistan, and Pakistani governments always try to increase, and this is a matter I think we must appreciate the government. But as you said, there is always room for the improvement, and there is a huge room in the context of the Pakistan to improve the tax collection. First of all, the tax net, that is a huge problem. If you look at that, unfortunately after the General Pervez Musharraf, suddenly we saw a decline in the taxpayer peoples. But
why was that decline after Musharraf Sahab? What happened?
Maybe so. I don't want to speculate. I don't want to criticize anybody. But at that time, the 2 or 3 things happened which was really bad for the economy. Number one, so they gave the amnesty schemes. Continuously, People's Party government and the PML government, they gave the amnesty schemes. When you have amnesty scheme, so everybody would like to enjoy that.
True.
Why they will pay the 15 or 20% tax on a regularly or every year on their wealth or some their business activities? Then if there is a amnesty scheme at a 2% or 3%, that is a good deal. True. So everybody would like to go there. So that was, I feel personally, that was one of the reasons, so there was a lower number of the taxpayers. But now government has started to take a serious steps in the last 2 or 3 years. They want to increase the taxpayers. And I think that is the first outcome of that campaign is that, so we are seeing increase in our tax. But still there are a number of the people who are not in a tax rate, number one. So we have to look at the retail services sector. So how many there are business entities which are not registered and they are not paying taxes? That would be the huge.
Also in the agriculture sector.
So I am coming to that second part. So retail services sector, we have to look at that.
True.
So how many entities they are not registered? Because in the time of in early years of this century, so we saw a comprehensive campaign to register that businesses, but there was a strict opposition, stern opposition from the business community that they.
But why this opposition? To evade tax or for other measures?
So number one, they feel like that's the tax money is not being spent at the proper time, at the proper places. They are more concerned about the corruption. So if they are giving money, even if you look at the zakat, most of the people say banks give us the money, we will give it ourselves. They don't. They say like we don't trust the government institutions. So that is one of the reasons. So that is the area where we need, you can say, to increase the tax net. Second, agriculture. This is very important. This actually is that this has been exploited by the big landlords and the small and the, you can say, the big landholders. They put the example of they are the small farmers. Yes, they are the small farmers and they constitute more than the 89% of the community. And but they hold the land less than the 50%. So that the last 50% is being held by the big landlords.
True.
So there should be a tax on the income or the income activities on the farm. And we can make an arrangement. We can say, look, there would be no tax up to the 12 acre, but beyond the 12 acre there would be tax. If you are concerned about small farmers.
All right.
If you are concerned about the small farmers,
which is a genuine concern.
So if you look at that, most of the farmers, for example, is around about 3 million farms, they are less than 2 acres, 2.5 acres. And 2.5 acres, and there are more than 1 million farms which are less than 1 acre. From where they will be generating the income? There would be no tax on them. So a tax should be on the agriculture income. It is hurting Pakistan two sides. Number one, they are not paying taxes. Number two, the big landlords, most of the time they are also the big business groups.
True.
So they sometimes they also try to just show they are the business income
And
as the
sometimes,
agriculture income.
most of the times they are also in politics.
And not sometimes, most of the time, if you look at the business and the landlords. So these are the major reasons I think we need to work on that.
But how can the government impose it when a lot of times it comes under pressure when it tries to impose such measures on the agriculturalists or the industrialists? It reverts back to them in one more ways than one. How can the government put a stand or put their foot down as far as such measures are concerned?
Simple way. They say, look, there would be no tax up to the 12.5 acres. So that's mean you are taking care of your small farmer communities. Because this is the argument. They are giving only this argument. And the rest of the big farmers, they have to pay the taxes on their income. And it will increase our, I am sure it will increase our tax revenue.
All right. You also talked about this mistrust that exists in certain parts of the community in Pakistan as far as where the tax money is going and how it is being spent. You talked about zakat and so many others. Do you feel that our concerned organizations need to be more transparent with that, maybe put on the social media a list of which are the measures that have been taken with the tax money that they have received?
Look, they need to be transparent, one thing. Second thing, so what the government is doing, they have to show that the taxpayer money is being spent at the right place. For example, I just give you one example. This is not relevant, but it would be relevant. If you look at our Prime Minister said he will not be living in the Prime Minister house. So he pushed the idea that he will be saving money. But what about the so many ministers living in the minister colony? So people are saying on one side you are arguing something, on the other side you are putting money somewhere else. So they are the 30-40 ministers, full-time ministers I am talking about. I am not talking about the advisors. So you are giving them the luxuries of living in the separate bungalows and these things. Other advisors, you are paying them huge money, hefty money. So when people see these things, they feel like that, oh, my money is not being spent on the right place. So they are more concerned about that. That's why the zakat money they took out.
Before the government cuts the zakat.
Although it is if you look at the Islamic principles, it's the job of the state to collect the zakat
and to distribute it amongst the needy.
Among the needies. But there is you can look at that. So what is happening? So mistrust. You cannot you can say eliminate the mistrust by just giving the statements or good speeches.
All right.
You have to show the concrete action. Then people start to believe you.
All right. Now, this increase in 18% between last year and this year as far as tax revenue is concerned, what amounted to that increase? Which are the factors that led to this increase?
One thing is that our export increases. That's mean when your export is increasing, that's mean so your industry is working. When your industry, this year we have achieved, I think, the highest level of our exports in the last 1 decade. So that is a good news. But we also have to look at that either this income, so the export is creating more equality or the inequalities. For example, in the before budget, I was sitting on a program and the businessman from Karachi, he was pointing out that there is a huge increase in our textile exports. But the number of the people, the exporters, they have decreased by 30%.
Okay.
So that is also the matter of fact, we have to look at that. So, but good thing is that our tax is increasing. But bad thing is that either it's bringing the equality or inequality. If the people are being eliminated from the export market, that's mean they will be a burden on the economy in another way around. One thing is that economic activity generating a good tax. And then we can also talk about the consumption which has been increased in the last 1 or 2 years. Because most of our taxes are from the indirect taxes. The government rightly celebrating the huge influx of this foreign remittances, and the people.
Well, it's a huge amount of evidence that we've had this year.
Have received. And if you look at the economic survey of Pakistan this year, they have clearly mentioned our growth is being pushed by consumption, and consumption was being pushed by 2 factors: remittances and the relief program which government has given to the COVID-19. So basically our major push is coming from that consumption.
All right.
So which
is this consumption that you've talked about going to go in the same vein, or do you feel it is going to step down slowly and steadily once COVID ends in the country?
Definitely it will be stepped down, because when the relief package is over, because we gave the relief package around about 2 trillion rupees. So that was a big amount.
All right.
One thing. Second thing, consumption led growth is not an ideal growth, and it is not a good growth. You need production based growth if you want to sustain and you want to develop. Look at the China. They have the GDP growth. The GDP growth was built on the basis of their production capacity, not on the basis of the consumption. Consumption is good when you are meeting all the needs of the people from your own resources. If you have to meet the needs by importing, look at the Pakistani, we import the oil. We import the food. For example, this year we have to import around about $5 billion food products. That is a matter of a huge shame for us. We always celebrate, oh, we are agriculture country.
And we should make most of that produce ourselves instead of importing.
Yes, we can do it.
Producing and exporting as well.
And look at there is policy choices. So when you are talking about to give a good price to the farmers for their products, we say, oh, it would be rather it would be, oh, we have to give the subsidies, there would be the increase in the prices, but simultaneously you import the wheat. This year again you are importing the wheat. Last year you have spent $5 billion on the import of the food products. So either it's a wise strategy to help the farmers from the other country or the farmer from your country. You have to make a wise choice. You have to help the farmers in your own country. But for that purpose again, you need to be very targeted. What we are doing, we are giving a subsidy, blanket subsidy. So for example, on the urea, on the some fertilizer, they give a 1,000 concession. Tell me, Umar, if a farmer who has a less than 1 acre, will he have the resources to buy the 4,500 bag? I'm talking about the lower side.
True, I agree.
No. If you are the millions of farmers, they are the less than 5 acres. How many bags they can afford? So then where is going this subsidy? This subsidy is going to the big farmers.
All right.
Other way around, they are playing, sorry, I'm cutting.
Yes, please.
They are playing a very smart game. They are saving their skins from the taxes at the name of small farmers. They are getting the subsidy at the name of the small farmers.
And they are using that subsidy in their own favor, basically, for their own purposes. But how can we control all of this? Because we know, like you've told, I'm sure our ministries know, the people in power in our government also know the lacunas that exist and how to work around them. What is hampering this, progress of the government as far as curtailing these measures is concerned?
We spoke about the mistrust. No, this is the answer, what you are asking me.
All right.
So, if I know, that's mean the policy maker knows. So, why they are not making decision? Simple, they have some other motives. As you also mentioned, so in the parliament, who is controlling the parliament? Either landlords or the business community. And they have the few poster boys just to show that, oh, from middle class somebody can become a minister or the MN or something like that. They are the poster boys also.
All right.
Just to satisfy the people.
All right.
For example, after these budget sessions, what should be happening in the budget? They should be debating. They should be debating the subsidy policy, how to move forward. But they are fighting one political party, big political party leader is accusing some other party on the personal character assassination. And that other sitting minister, he is going for the personal character assassination of the opposition party. So what is this their priority? Their priority is to divert the attention. Or then they sell this argument among their supporters that look what we are doing with the opposition, look what we are doing with the government.
All right.
And we are so helpless people, we are cheering that. So there should be the debate, what should be done? Why we are importing again the wheat for this year? On one side we are celebrating our growth has been increased due to the agriculture product also. Because when they look at the production of the wheat. But we are not talking about how much we achieved. That much we achieved only due to the increase in the production area of the wheat, not the productivity of the growth. And there is no growth in the productivity.
Right.
And number two, we are not talking about what happened to the cotton. This year, if we have to import the cotton of $6 billion, so that means what is the use to bring the $6 billion from the foreign remittances, but sending out through that cotton import? Due to only mismanagement and the misgovernance.
All right.
And on one way you are asking the people to increase your foreign earnings through the export, but on the other side you are importing the food stuff.
there needs to be a just measure, there needs to be a balance and equilibrium between the export and import, wherein the exports increase and also production increases in Pakistan, so that we don't rely on the imports, and also the pressure should be put on those who are not coming under the tax net, so that our tax revenue also increases next year. And inshallah, I hope that your whatever you've said is going to the right persons who are in power, and of course the measures I hope will be taken, so that next year when we talk of tax revenues, and you're here and we're here and we're talking about that there will be a more consequent increase as far as the tax revenue in Pakistan is concerned, at least more than 20 or 25%. So that, because in developed countries, and you know that very well, Shakeel, Ramay, that developed countries are the ones who take the most tax from all segments of the society, whether they be the Prime Minister, the President, the ministers, or the industrialists.
I just want to say one thing at the end, Umar. Tax collection is very important, but non-tax revenue is equally important. Look, the Western country, we gave the example, but their financial sources are depleting. Even during the COVID-19, US had to print the money. US is the biggest economy of the world, but the government does not have the money to give to the package to the people. They had to print the money because they depleted their tax revenue avenues through the privatization.
All right.
We need to avoid this mistake in Pakistan. Although every day we listen that government say, oh, we are going to privatize. Privatization is not a good solution.
All right.
You have to run those things because you have to earn non-tax revenue. Because when the business community becomes strong, they will come lower the tax rate.
All right. All right. Thank you very much, Shakeel. Ramay Saab, leading economist. Of course, we talk to you very often, and we hope that whatever you've said today, which is very important, is going to go to the right people in the right places. Thank you very much, sir, to have joined us. Let's go to our last stories, ladies and gentlemen, very quickly, because we're a bit short of time. First of all, under the able leadership of Jam Kamal Khan, who's the Baluchistan chief minister, the provincial government is endeavoring to bring the latest technologies, of course, for the benefit of the people. In this context, the PSDP Automation Resource Center was recently inaugurated at the Civil Secretariat, Quetta. It happened last month on the 3rd of June 2021. It's a PND and GPP collaboration and will help boost development work in the province, installation of databases for schemes, better tracking and digital monitoring. We know that this is a world in which everything needs to be monitored in the proper way by the proper people with the proper mechanisms, and I think measures that are being taken by the Baluchistan government are in the right vein. Next news story, of course, that is also as important, is about this man who's Mohammed Jaffer, who worked at the Bacha airport, that is the airport in Peshawar, and he worked tirelessly for 35 years. There was not a single person who complained about his service. Everybody was quite happy. What happened in the end, when he retired, he was given this honorary post as the manager of the airport as well, just to thank him for all of the services he's rendered in a meticulous manner. Shows that whenever you do things in the right vein during your professional career, you are always rewarded one way or the other. Then of course, let's talk about Islamophobia, the recent decision that has been taken under the United Nations Security Council, and of course what has been happening in Canada. More in the following report.
Another horrifying incident of racial violence has come to light as Pakistani origin man stabbed, insulted over beard and clothing in Canada. Just weeks after a Pakistani family was brutally murdered in Ontario, a Muslim migrant named Kashif was attacked in a Canadian province. This despicable atrocity, when combined with Ontario's hit-and-run murder of 3 generations of a Pakistani origin family, Christchurch massacre, anti-Muslim legislation in US, and anti-Muslim activities in Europe, illustrates systematic rise of Islamophobia in Western societies. Global media narrative has conveniently tied terrorism and fundamentalism with Muslims, while surge in hate crimes in West indicate that terrorism does not have any religion. Hence, demonization and stereotyping Muslims as fanatics is utterly unjust. Prime Minister Imran Khan has also periodically stressed that Muslim countries should stand up to the West and express their concerns against the rising Islamophobia in the world. There is urgent need of concerted strategy to raise alarm regarding dangerous normalization of Islamophobia and dearth of holistic strategies to counter this menace.
And finally, harassment against women, a global issue that is plaguing every country, including Pakistan. What is happening in Pakistan to counter that? More in the following report.
The harassment of women is a very sensitive issue, which needs robust discussion and effective measures to combat its widespread occurrence. Unlike other types of sexual and gender-based violence, harassment is a relatively new concept in Pakistan, both as a legal category and in the public imagination. Appreciatively, women will now be able to lodge harassment complaints from the safety of their homes while protecting their identities after the police in Rawalpindi set up a separate harassment reporting unit. This is the first time in the history of the country that a separate unit has been established to address harassment complaints, so the initiative could be hailed as a milestone because it will address hitherto structural exclusivity of this heinous crime. While employing technology to facilitate reporting of offensive, the harassment reporting unit will help victims who have been harassed in homes, markets, offices, public transport and educational institutions, school, college in taking the legal course. Owing to the social stigma attached with harassment incidents, many such occurrences went unreported. The female-run police hotline aims to encourage Pakistani women to report abuse. Earlier, the government of Pakistan also introduced Women Harassment Act in Pakistan in order to secure the women in our society. This initiative is one of the several gains made by Pakistani women in recent years.
This brings us to the end of today's newsroom. Have a great weekend. We'll see you Monday. Stay safe. Get yourselves vaccinated. Allah Hafiz.